Mhm, 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 mhm. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on chapter 74, which means I have 40 more remaining, and which also means I have 12 more remaining in the Prophet's time in Mecca. And then there's the Great Migration, and then chapter 86 in terms of Revelation is a big one. And then you start seeing um, God setting out the rules for Islam, not only as a religion, but as a constitution and as a self help book and as a guidance for man and woman and child at every level. So you start seeing it as um, something that appeals to the soul, but also something that can be legislated and something that can be codified and something that can be spread across not only multiple households, but neighborhoods, districts, settlements, cities, countries, regions, continents, worlds, galaxies, universes, and so forth. It's a what's the word? How can I use that word? It's fundamental. I was going to say intrinsic, but it's not intrinsic. But it touches upon the intrinsic nature not only of man, but all that is created, and it is touching upon that which is fundamental. In using that to construct certain structures, which uh, which are very beneficial to us. As far as I am concerned, as a Muslim, the structures laid out in this book and in the accompanying ahadith and the sunnah from Prophet Muhammad are probably, no, not probably, are definitely, as far as I'm concerned, the best advice that can be received by a human being. Today, we are soldiering on with chapter 74 in terms of Revelation, which is Surah Al Mu'minun, which means the believers. Now, interestingly, the last chapter that I finished, completed here, was titled Surah Al Anbiya, which means the prophets, and now the next chapter is titled the believers. It's very interesting because when you arrange these in terms of the Quranic structure, Surah Al Anbiya is chapter 21 or 23. Sorry, the prophets, and this is chapter 23. Let me just confirm. Yeah, it's 21, and then there's one in the middle, and then there's this one. But in terms of revelation order, it kind of makes sense where God would talk to Muhammad, peace be upon him, about the prophets, and then suddenly after that talks about the receivers of what the messengers are saying, right? The believers, because he would build upon that argument. Um, Chronologically speaking, we are nearing the end of his time in Mecca. As I mentioned earlier, there are only 12 chapters remaining after this. No, including this. This 74 and then 86 is in the 86th is in Medina. So Islam has been around for 10 years or so. Islam being spread by Prophet Muhammad has been around for 10 years or so. He's been sharing his message, he's been convincing people, he's developing more fame, he's developing more opposition, as does all truth. Um, and once that is done, rather than staying and bickering, one solution, which we've used throughout history, is to step away and find another region where you could enact your belief system. So I'll give the example of India and Pakistan, for example. India and Pakistan were one country before 1947, and thanks to I say thanks sarcastically, the colonial enterprise by the British Empire, Hindus and Muslims who had been living together for about 1,000 years or so suddenly decided to separate. And they decided to separate because um, before the British colonial invasion, empires used to exist and it wasn't country, right? They were a collection of empires. And now, when they left, they expected India to function as England did. It's a very typical Anglo-English American Western mindset where you expect the whole world to behave like you do. That's I'm getting too political in that regard. So when they left, Hindus and Muslims were supposed to coexist peacefully, and that was difficult. And I'm not saying impossible, because in India there's millions of Muslims now, but they there are arguments there which I don't want to get into now because this is a religious topic. But a whole bunch of Muslims from India got up and established their own country where they said, okay, you know what? We're not going to benefit from 5,000, 6,000 years of Indus Valley civilization that we've built in India. We're going to have our own place. And that's how a lot of countries are formed. In fact, look at North America and Great Britain, or look at other countries around the world. This happens all the time, right? So, and the Prophet deciding, the Prophet by decree of God, obviously, the Prophet deciding to take all his followers and supporters and saying, look, it's time we left Mecca and establish a home base from which we can safely, securely spread our message and make sure that our assets and our interests are defended and protected. So that's where we're getting to. And I would say, look, this chapter is going to take me 3 to 4 weeks to finish, and there are others like it. So I would say by the end of this year, hopefully, we would be leaving Mecca in our narrative by the end of this year. Now, somebody watching this in the future, where you have all the content available online, now you can just jump forward to the next videos. But I'm talking about the real people who exist in real time with me today. Okay. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, successful indeed are the believers, those who offer their prayers with all solemnity and full submissiveness, and those who turn away from a lagh, dirty, false, evil, vain talk, falsehood, and all that God has forbidden. And those who pay the zakat. Now, zakat we've talked about before. It is this mandated amount. I wouldn't call it charity, because it is a mandated amount decided at that time to be enough that if everyone paid it, nobody would be dirt poor. That's 2.5%. And those who guard their chastity from illegal sexual acts, except from their wives or the slaves that their right hands possess, for them they are free from blame. Now, I will not spend too much time on this word, because you can easily Google it, and it's not the purpose of our enterprise here. The fact that they use slaves right after wives does not mean that wives are slaves. Point one. Point two, people who would look at the term slaves and say, oh Lord, what a horrible act. This book promotes slavery. No. If you look at the context, and if you look at today, if you look at outside the 8% of the world, which is the Western world, which is either the Anglophone world or Northwestern Europe and North America. If you look outside the world, if you look at the Middle East, you look at South Asia, if you look at North Africa, Central Africa, if you look at South America, you will notice that slavery is still a common practice. It may not be visually depicted as slavery has been depicted in the antebellum South of North America, where white folks, Caucasian folks, would sit atop their gigantic houses and use whips and what other kinds of treacherous tortures against an imported working class from Africa who were sold on the slave trade by other slave owners, many of whom were free blacks and indigenous from those countries. It may not look like that, but if you analyze the subject matter, it is still slavery. And I say this as someone who is a developing expert on the topic of modern slavery. And I particularly look at child labor, but modern slavery is a subject that we talk about all the time, and it is ever relevant and prevalent today. This does not mean that I'm defending it. It also does not mean that the Quran defends it. What it does mean is the Quran is a book that takes context into account. So if it is talking about the slaves, it is talking about it in context. I would advise you to read a book written, collected 1400 years ago when adapted and not adapted, what would we the word assemble together over a millennium ago. I would advise you to look at that by reading into the context and don't just cherry pick and say, well, the Quran talks about slavery in a positive light. It means you must sleep with your slaves. No, it's a whole different mindset and domain. Okay, try looking at it. I've said this before. If you jump back to 100 years ago, so let's go back to 1925. You can find these videos on YouTube of Paris or Montreal or London or New York in 1925, and you'll see how different the people were at that time, all the belief systems. Now jump back 14 times that. You're looking at that sort of a book. And that book has sustained, those ideas have sustained. So try to read these verses with a contextual understanding rather than semantic critique. We're saying, well, no, this word does not work here. This is God honest advice. It would bode you well in everything. And those who guard the chastity from illegal sexual acts, except from their wives, that the right hands possess, for them they are free from blame. But whoever seeks beyond that, then those are the transgressors. Those who are faithfully true to their amanat, all the duties which God has ordained, honesty, moral responsibility, and trust, and to their covenant, the agreements. And those who strictly guard their 5 compulsory congregational prayers at their fixed stated hours. Guard their prayers. That's an interesting way to say it. Perform their prayers is how we would say it today. But I would, if I were to take a deep dive into understanding why they use the term guard, is because you kind of have to guard those prayers against all sorts of distractions. You really do. It's really difficult to go and pray. And people who do it, they do a fantastic job, and all of us should do it. But you kind of certainly do have to guard it against a lot of exogenous shocks, as we say. Those are indeed the inheritors who shall inherit the Firdaus, which is one rank in paradise. They shall dwell therein forever. And indeed we created man out of an extract of clay, water and earth. Therefore, thereafter we made him the offspring of Adam as a nutfa, which is a mixed drops of male and female sexual discharge, and lodged it in a safe lodging, which is the womb of the woman. Now, scholars would say, I don't dive into this as much as required, but scholars would tell you that, look, this is indeed divine knowledge, because at that point of time, we had barely cut open human bodies to really understand them. We didn't know that, oh, this is how a zygote is formed, or oh, this is where it attaches and this is where it develops. So it is interesting how it has been said so long ago. Obviously, there are arguments back and forth. I'm not getting into that point right now. Then we made the nutfa into a clot, a piece of thick coagulated blood. Then we made the clot into a lump of flesh. Then we made out of the little lump of flesh bones. Then we clothed the bones with flesh, and then we brought it forth as another creation. So blessed is God, the best of creators. It's true. It's true. What's this footnote? I'm curious about this footnote. You see how it's so cleanly. Oh, it's another chapter. Okay. After that, surely you will die. Then again, surely you will be resurrected on the day of resurrection. And indeed, we have created above you 7 heavens, one over the other, and we are never unaware of the creation. True. And we sent down from the sky water in due measure, and we gave it lodging in the earth, and verily we are able to take it away. That's true. I mean, condensation explains that perfectly, right? You have a whole cycle of condensation. So I don't even need to verify this. Then we brought forth for you there were gardens of date palms and grapes, wherein is much fruit for you, and whereof you eat. Now, again, what I was explaining about context. A talk of date palms and grapes would matter very little to somebody living in Iceland or Denmark, or somebody living in northern Canada, or you might need blubber, or where you might need something that makes you feel incredibly warm. Date palms are supposed to preserve your thirst, like preserve you from getting thirsty, and grapes give you a lot of flavor, also carrying juice inside them. They're not dry fruit. So because the context is a hot, desert-like, arid context, Therefore, this is a verse over there. If the Quran had been revealed in northern Sweden, I'm sure God would have been talking about a completely different staple. That's the point I'm making about context. Please, I urge you to read religious books in context. That's the whole purpose of this whole enterprise. As I tell you every time, now we are in 620 AD, now we're in 615 or so forth, because I'm tying it to the context and to the life of the Prophet. I've done the spot. And a tree, olive, that springs forth from Mount Sinai, that grows oil, produces oil, and it is a relish for the eaters. Interesting. Oil producing tree. And verily in the cattle there is indeed a lesson for you. We give you to drink milk of that which is in their bellies, and there are in them numerous other benefits for you, and of them you eat. True, we get a lot of meat from cows, we get milk from cows, we make clothes from cows, we can even make fuel from cow dung. If you go to great parts of South America or South Asia, you'll see cow dung being used. And on them and on ships you are carried. Oh, interesting. Oh, what a transition. Oh, look, talking about cows, what we get from cows, and on them you are carried. Makes sense. But on them and on ships you are carried. Now the cow is gone, and now we're going to talk about a ship designed by who? Well, built by who? Noah. Oh, the writing is marvelous. Oh, it's so beautiful. And indeed, we sent Noah to his people, and he said, "Oh, my people, worship God. You have no other God but him. Will you not then be afraid of him, of his punishment, because of worshipping others beside him?" But the chiefs of his people who disbelieve said, "He is no more than a human being like you. He seeks to make himself superior to you. Had God willed, he surely could have sent down angels. Never did we hear such a thing among our fathers of old." Again, the same. My father never told me this. He is only a man in whom is madness, so wait for him a while. This is interesting, because it's Noah. When it was Abraham, or when it was Moses, or Jesus, or Muhammad, peace be upon him, or other prophets, the defense was similar. It was the same. Our father never told us this, but it wasn't as bad. It was, well, where is God? Okay, well, you say there is God. Where is he? How big is he? When is the day of risk? So and so forth. But Noah was one of the early generations. Early. Adam to Noah, what, 7 to 10 generations? That's not too far. Not too long, right? So they simply said, well, he would have sent angels down. Now, the wonderful thing about critics or atheists or people who doubt is if they had sent an angel down, they would have said it is sorcery. And if the angel had proven themselves to be celestial or angelic beyond doubt, they would have started worshipping the angel, not the Lord who sent the angel. Because you're either cynical or you're mad. So there is, because I always wonder if God wanted to convince people, he would simply show them, look, I am God, pray. And obviously all would out of fear. I don't think he wants us to pray purely out of fear. I think he wants us to want to pray. To pray out of fear is one step. Then to pray out of love is another step. To want to pray as it becomes intrinsic to you, to want to breathe almost, to want to eat delicious food and so forth. I have no evidence of this thought, but I feel instinctively that is the direction he wants to take us into. Otherwise, he could simply, if he created this whole universe, which I think he did, he could simply snap his fingers and we all bow down forever. But he wants us to choose to pray because there is something divine and something pure and beneficial in that choice to pray. When you choose to pray and do all other ascribed acts, you're choosing not to do the other acts. And there's something in that which God wants to trigger within us. Otherwise, you could simply snap us into prayer. Do you know what I mean? I think that's why it's important. I digress. He surely could have sent down angels, never did we hear such a thing among our fathers of old. He is only a man in whom his madness will wait for him a while, and never said, "Oh my Lord, help me," because they deny me. So we revealed to him, saying, "Construct the ship under our eyes and under our revelation." Then when our command comes and water gushes forth from the oven, take on board of each kind two, male and female, and your family, except those thereof against whom the word has already gone forth. And address me not in favor of those who have done wrong. Verily they are to be drowned. This is the thing about great prophets, they speak even in favor of those who decry them or deny them, who cause them great pain. Incredible levels of compassion, empathy, sympathy, love, all of it. But that's why God tells them, no, look, this has to happen, and you have to develop this inside you. And when you have embarked on the ship, you and whoever is with you then say, all the praises and thanks be to God, who has saved us from the people who are Zalimun, the oppressors, the wrongdoers, the polytheist, those who join others in worship to God, and say, my Lord, cause me to land at a blessed landing place, for you are the best of those who bring to land. Verily in this, what we did as regards drowning of the people of Noah, there are indeed verses. For sure, we are ever putting men to the test. Let me look at this again. Verily in this occurrence, I say, in this event or in this historic event, there are indeed verses. For sure, we are ever putting men to the test. Verses in terms of proof, evidence, lessons, science, for men to understand. Okay. Then after them, we created another generation, and another, and another, and another. And God knows how many have come and gone. And we sent to them a messenger from among themselves, saying, worship God, you have no other God but him. Will you not then be afraid of him, of his punishment, because of worshipping others beside him? The same thing, the same verse that has been said just a few verses ago. It's the same damn message every single time. And the chiefs of his people who disbelieved and denied the meeting in the hereafter, and whom we had given the luxuries and comforts of this life, said, he is no more than a human being like you. He eats of that which you eat and drinks of what you drink. If you were to obey a human being like yourselves, then verily you indeed would be losers. Does he promise you that when you have died and have become dust and bones, you shall come out alive, resurrected? Far, very far is that which you are promised. There is nothing but our life of this world. We die and we live, and we are not going to be resurrected. He is only a man who has invented a lie against God, and we are not going to believe in him. Oh, so they had their own belief systems. He said, oh, my Lord, help me because they deny me. And God said, in a little while, they are sure to be regretful. So, asayha. I've mentioned this before. A torment, an awful cry overtook them in truth with justice, and we made them as rubbish of dead plants. So away with the people who are the polytheists, the wrongdoers, who disbelieve in God and his message. Then after them we created other generations. No nation can advance their term, nor can they delay it. Then we sent our messengers in succession. Every time they came to a nation, their messenger, every time they came to a nation, their messenger, they denied him. So we made them follow one another to destruction, and we made them as a hadith, the true stories for mankind to learn a lesson from. So away with the people who believe not. I'm going to stop here because it is verse 44, and I intend on completing this chapter in 3 weeks. So I am going to stop here and maybe think about this subject for 1 minute or so, because every time a messenger has been sent, they have been denied. There has been pushback. Does God want that? God appoints messenger, God sends messenger, messenger faces obstacles and opposition. God encourages messenger, messenger keeps trying, And in his efforts, he ends up converting a part of the opposition, sometimes a gigantic part. And hundreds of years after his message, or thousands of years after his message, people still carry it forth. The divine wisdom that I'm seeing here is God knows there's going to be opposition, and that is a learning curve for the messenger and the opposition. If somebody came to me, if let's say there's a new religion, I'm not saying there is. No, let's say I'm one of the pagans of Mecca, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, turns up and says, "Well, I believe in one God and not all your gods, the sun or the fire." And I say, "No, you're wrong. No, no, I'm not going to listen to you." And he says, "Well, no, please listen to me, because if you don't, this is going to happen." No, no, I'm not going to listen to you. And then we go back and forth for months and years on end, because the Prophet kept persisting and warning and sharing stories. It is to show the Prophet that this is your purpose. You were given great patience, great persistence, and a gigantic heart, and an ability to communicate and connect with people. It's not going to be easy. With great power comes great responsibility. So carry on. I have faith in you. Imagine God saying, I have faith in you. And then to the people, it is to say, we have given you brains to think, we have given you mouths to argue, we've given you hearts to feel, or we've given you hearts to recognize feeling, so to speak. Use it wisely. So when you face this message and you're going to oppose it, some of you will oppose it directly, some of you will accept it directly, others would think about it and then develop it further and say, okay, maybe this is what I can learn and this is what I can't. It is an exercise for us, not really for God. If God convinces all of us that He exists and He's the greatest and He is all divine, He doesn't get taller, He doesn't get stronger. It's not like we gave Him the Infinity Stones and He becomes stronger. God is beyond all. This whole exercise is for us. This whole puppet show, this whole performance is for us. I think I'm on to something with this perspective. I think I'll expand this further. I will expand this further. But I will stop here. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend remaining. Great